guys? It's Benny. We finally know the truth about this event, the slaughter of 67 innocent souls above the skies of our nation's capital just 1 week after President Trump was sworn into office, and it's worse than you can possibly imagine. New reporting has finally confirmed our darkest suspicions on this channel. And it is this. That Rebecca Lobach, this pilot right here, you can see serving Joe Biden inside of the White House with Alex Soros sitting right behind her, was 100% responsible and may well have done this on purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, this is according to a brand new New York Times article. You can see here, this article is 5,000 words long, and it goes into extraordinary, excruciating detail of this event. But let's jump in really quickly to two things that you have to see right now. The helicopter path flew directly at the commercial airline. The commercial airliner path was an approved path to land on this runway. The commercial airliner did nothing wrong. The Army helicopter seemingly on purpose attacked this aircraft. There's no other explanation. And I'm going to get into more detail as to how and why we know that right here. Missteps, equipment problems, and a common but risky practice led to fatal crash. This is the New York Times breaking this all down. But ladies and gentlemen, let's just jump right into the brass tacks. Rebecca Lobach was not training correctly. She was not flying the helicopter correctly. She was not listening to orders. She did not listen to the radio control tower. She didn't listen to her co-pilots. And she was effectively targeting a commercial aircraft. That is what we now know, and that is what has been confirmed by this article. The reason we know that is because of way down here at the bottom of the article, and we're going to break down the entire thing. We've read the entire thing. There's a lot of big details, but this is the one that really hits. Down at the very bottom of the article, because of course they bury it, that she was ordered by her warrant officer sitting directly in the helicopter cockpit with her. His name was Warrant Officer Eaves, ordered her to change course in the vehicle. He confirmed with the control tower that that's what they were going to do. He told the control tower approved for them to do that. He told her to move. 15 seconds later, she flies directly into the commercial aircraft, killing men, women, and children, Russian citizens, Chinese citizens, Olympians. And as you can see here in the horrifying footage, she didn't even try to move. You can see that they were directly targeted. And I use the term targeted specifically because when we spoke with Black Hawk helicopter pilots on the show, they said, listen, you can have near misses, you can have confusion, but the way that these birds operate, if you're trying to move, if you're even trying to evade something, you can do it, first off, incredibly quickly. These birds are designed to evade RPGs, missiles. These are helicopters. These are aircraft that are designed for war zones to keep our men and women safe. Here's the tell. You can see here the tail of the helicopter. It doesn't move. If this helicopter was trying to evade this plane at all, you would see the tail of the helicopter go up, down, sideways, move somewhere in order to position the helicopter out of the flight path. And now we know, according to the New York Times, that she was ordered to do this and instead flew directly into the commercial aircraft without even attempting, as you can see there with the tail, without even attempting to change course. It is our worst fears. Was this a DEI hire? Was Captain Lobach somebody who should never have been in that cockpit? I think the answer is absolutely yes. Was this helicopter where it should not have been? The answer to that is also yes, according to the black box data. And also according to the New York Times reporting, this helicopter was flying where it was not allowed to fly. The female pilot of the Black Hawk helicopter collided with American Airlines flight at Reagan National Airport, ignored her co-pilot and the control tower's critical errors, and was flying at an altitude that they were not legally allowed to fly at. Here's how the article concludes. He told her he believed the air traffic control wanted them to turn left towards the riverbank. Turning left would have opened up more space between the helicopter and Flight 5342, which was headed to the runway 33, exactly where it should have been, roughly 300 feet. She did not turn left. She just plowed directly into it. It makes absolutely no sense. I mean, other than someone having a mental breakdown or a seizure, perhaps, but there's no indication of that. The article goes into detail, but there's no indication that she had some type of medical event. You just you're just left to assume the absolute worst, which is that she wanted this to happen. She was clearly capable. She was physically capable of turning the helicopter, and she just didn't. Let's jump into even further detail. The New York Times has confirmed that Captain Rebecca Lobach failed to heed commands and instructor advice, causing the fatal helicopter crash. The helicopter crew appeared to have made more than one mistake. Not only was the Black Hawk flying too high, but in the final seconds before the crash, the pilot failed to heed directives from her co-pilot, the Army instructor, and change course. The crew's mission was to conduct an annual evaluation of Captain Lobach. This is why I say she was in training. She definitely should not have been flying over some of the most crowded and restrictive airspace in the world. Why can't you do trainings for bad pilots or for DEI pilots? Why can't you do that over the Grand Canyon or in the desert somewhere? Why do you have to do it over Washington, D.C.? It seems very reckless to me. I hope they change that. And Donald Trump has now banned all helicopter travel through the Potomac in Washington, D.C. She joined the Army in 2019 to ensure her helicopter piloting skills were up to par. Captain Lobach was the highest ranking soldier in the helicopter, but Chief Warrant Officer Andrew Eaves, who was acting as her instructor, had flown twice as many hours over time. So he was a far more experienced pilot, and that's what really matters. As the helicopter approached the Key Bridge, from which it would fly south down the river, Warrant Officer Eaves stated that it was 300 feet and descending to 200 feet. Necessary because of the maximum height for its route was 200 feet. This would have, of course, been a close call, but it wouldn't have smashed into the commercial aircraft had it been the correct altitude. But even as it reached this juncture, Warrant Officer Eaves evidently felt obligated to repeat his instructions. The Black Hawk was at 300 feet. He said it needed to descend. Captain Lobach said she would. But 2.5 minutes later, she refused to descend. Direct, immediate intervention was needed that night. Instead of seeing and avoiding the commercial aircraft, she flew straight into it. Investigators might never know why. There was no indication that she was suffering from mental health issues. The Black Hawk was 15 seconds away from crossing paths with the jet when the warrant officer turned his attention and he barked at her to turn the helicopter, and it just didn't. I just want to play you one more time. You have to see it. It's here, clear as day on camera. The helicopter, and I want to just bring your attention to this. Commercial aircraft in the sky look like that. Doesn't it look like a giant glowing planet? It shines brighter than the moon. That's on purpose so that you can't miss them. So there's no possible way that you're going to miss them in the sky. You're going to say, wow, this just came out of nowhere. That's not happening here. There is no other explanation. You can't say that she didn't see it. You can't say that nobody knew about the commercial aircraft, because now the New York Times has said repeatedly that they were warned. They were given permission to fly around the aircraft. They were told this. There were sirens that were blaring inside of the control towers. This helicopter didn't move and directly targeted that plane. There is no other earthly explanation for this. And by helicopter, I mean pilot Lobach, Captain Lobach. Let's continue to read. The FAA has struggled for years with low staffing among controllers. National Airport Tower had been no exception. At the time of the crash, for reasons that remain murky, a single controller was working both helicopter traffic and commercial runway traffic. This certainly should not be the case. They should definitely have more people doing that. The controller, whom the Times not identifying because his name has not been publicly revealed as part of the investigation, did not respond for a request to comment. His colleagues in the tower he typically worked with on control duty at that time, such as directing helicopters or handling airplanes on the taxiway. He worked about 7 hours that day, according to the government documents reviewed by the Times. FAA says all controllers get required breaks. But after a coworker left the control hub at 3:40, some controllers began to assume combined duties. So they said that this could also be a staffing problem. By the time the Army Black Hawk were in radio contact with the controller, 5 controllers were working different duties in the control hub of the tower. Near the end of his shift, the controller handling both helicopters and commercial jets tried to pull off a complicated and potentially risky maneuver called a squeeze play. This is an attempt to keep operations moving efficiently, according to the veteran National Airport controllers. Okay, so I mean, like, listen, I'm not here. Like, these are all and I've shown you the article. Please go read it yourself. Here it is on the New York Times. Okay, but like this is damning stuff. Look at this helicopter path. This helicopter path. They don't even try. They don't even try to maneuver. This helicopter was not allowed to be above 200 feet. This still would have been a very close, but you wouldn't have smashed and you wouldn't have killed anyone. It would have been a very close call. We would have probably read about it in the paper, but it wouldn't have been like a slaughter. Look at this. Why hadn't the helicopter descended? That was 2 minutes of orders. Why didn't the helicopter move? These are at least 20 to 30 seconds of orders to move, get out of the way. And she refused. Missteps, equipment problems, and common but risky practice. New details from the Times reveals the failures that led to the crash. Go read it for yourself. And totally, like, you should have proper staffing inside of the control towers. But as you will read in the article, the control tower tells them to get the hell out of the way. It's not like the control tower told them to fly right into the plane. The control tower did the right thing. It said, get the hell out of the way. There were sirens flashing saying you might have a collision here. You need to move. That's what happened. So it's not their fault. You could have had more staffing. I'm totally in favor of that. And so if you want to say that that's 2% of the problem here, fine. I'm not going to fight you. But 98% of the problem is the captain who didn't do anything. She didn't do anything. Why was her identity kept so secret for so long? What are they trying to hide here? Well, this was what they were trying to hide. The New York Times story in January DC plane crash hides its takeaway until the last sentences. The lady helicopter pilot ignored multiple warnings from her right seat about altitude and telling her to turn away, and she flew straight into a passenger jet, killing everyone. Female junior officer refused to listen to repeated warning for minutes on end. She killed 67 people, including 11 children. It's awful. Female pilot of the Black Hawk ignored co-pilot and slammed straight into the passenger plane. She also ignored the control tower. The control tower told them multiple times to move. The control tower alerted them to a potential collision. As suspected, the Black Hawk crash could have and should have been avoided. Helicopter pilot Rebecca Lobach failed to heed the commands of the instructor. Helicopter crew appeared to have made more than one mistake, flying too high and then refusing directives to move. Rebecca Lobach, lady helicopter pilot, spent most of her time lollygagging at the Biden White House instead of flying Black Hawks. Well, I mean, final line. Remember the DC helicopter crash? It turns out the female pilot was flying, given multiple warnings and directly told by her male co-pilot to turn the opposite direction. Instead, she flew straight into it. Lobach's name was withheld because of her direct connection with Biden administration. She was a DEI incompetent pilot. I made many posts about how she caused this tragic event. Everybody was trying to run cover for her. Rebecca Lobach sets women back 100 years while validating the women drivers trope. Nice going, Captain. It's brutal. It's brutal. But again, find the lie. I'm sorry, but somebody is to blame. Sometimes it's too bad that we're right? Like sometimes you don't want your worst suspicions confirmed, but this is what it is. Somebody's to blame, and I don't want this to be my family when we fly next. So you have to, as loud as you can, scream what happened here and who's at fault so that it doesn't happen again, no matter whose feelings it hurts. And the reality was that she should never have been flying, and she killed a bunch of people. This Joe Biden employee. She was a Joe Biden employee. This was what she was doing full time instead of training. She was hanging out with George Soros and Joe Biden. That's what we know. And she killed a bunch. Now a bunch of people are dead. New details emerge about female helicopter Rebecca Lobach's shocking negligence. So there we go. I mean, this is one of the worst. I guess I'll end with this. This is one of the worst videos because what you can see is in this is like from the Kennedy Center, which is like 2 miles away. You can see this helicopter flying just directly right here. You're going to see the flash. You can see this helicopter. Look at this. You can see the helicopter flying directly look at that. Look. It's like it's chasing it almost, right? There's going to be some forced perspective here. But look, this is the helicopter. This is the commercial aircraft. You can see them flying directly at each other, almost as though like it's like, again, as we've said, it's almost like it's targeting is happening. Like a target, somebody is specifically targeting here. It's just terrible to see. This was, of course, days into President Trump's first administration. Second term, and begs the question: was this some type of political targeting? Was this intended to make Trump look bad? Was this going to like bring some type of like all the scrutiny on the armed services? Is this some statement about Pete Hegseth? I don't know. Just honest questions you have to ask. But here's what we know: that this could have been avoided. This should have been avoided. That the pilot in charge of this aircraft did not avoid it, and seemingly, according to the New York Times and according to all available video evidence, did everything that she could to actually target this plane, and did not move. And that's what the video evidence shows. So, cry about it, right? That's what it is. I hope that there are some drastic changes here so that this never, ever happens again. And I'd really like to get a statement less from the New York Times and more from like our actual military as to how this will never happen again. Because ultimately this is a military helicopter doing this to civilians. This is the American military killing American civilians and also civilians of Russia and China, Olympians, children who died in the most horrible possible way. Getting sliced up while in midair. I mean, these planes are like tin cans, right? The rotors going back and forth. Oh, it's just awful. Oh, it's just terrible. Okay, that's what we want. We want a safer country and a country of laws and order, and not DEI. Okay, DEI, misspelled, DIE. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe. Pray for these families. See you.